The sun was setting over the vast expanse of the Arizona desert, casting long shadows across the rugged landscape. The air carried a faint warmth that lingered even as night began to creep in. In the distance, a lone figure rode on horseback, his silhouette dark against the fiery hues of the horizon. He moved with purpose, though his destination remained unclear. His hat sat low over his eyes, hiding their color and expression from prying gazes, while his boots kicked up clouds of dust with every step his horse took. At first glance, he appeared ordinary, a traveler passing through, perhaps seeking shelter or rest after a long journey. But there was something about him that made those who crossed his path uneasy. It wasn't just the way he held himself, tall and unyielding, but also the quiet confidence in his movements, as if he knew secrets no one else dared to uncover. Little did they know, this stranger carried more than just a saddlebag. He bore a key, small and unassuming, yet capable of unlocking truths better left buried. As the man approached an old ranch nestled at the edge of the desert, the wind picked up, carrying with it whispers of forgotten tales and untold mysteries. The ranch itself looked weathered, its wooden structures worn by time and harsh elements. A sign creaked above the entrance gate, reading Blackwell Ranch in faded letters. Beyond the fence, cattle grazed lazily under the watchful eye of a ranch hand, whose gaze sharpened when he noticed the rider approaching. The rancher, John Blackwell, stood near the barn, his hands resting on his hips as he surveyed his land. At 42 years old, John had built his life here, working tirelessly to carve out a piece of prosperity amidst the unforgiving wilderness. His face bore the lines of countless sunrises and sunsets, each crease telling a story of hard work and determination. Yet, despite his success, there was a heaviness in his demeanor, a burden only he seemed to carry. When the stranger dismounted and walked toward him, John straightened his brow, furrowing. "Evenin', stranger," he called out, his voice steady but laced with curiosity. "Evenin'," the man replied, tipping his hat slightly before tucking it back into place. "Name's Carter. What brings you to these parts?" John asked, glancing briefly at the key hanging loosely from Carter's belt. Its presence struck him as odd, almost ominous, though he couldn't quite explain why. Carter hesitated for a moment, his lips curving into a slight smirk. "I'm looking for someone or something. Thought maybe you could help me." John tilted his head, suspicion flickering in his eyes. "Help you how?" Instead of answering directly, Carter reached into his coat pocket and pulled out another key, identical to the one dangling from his belt. He extended it toward John, who stared at it warily. "This belongs to you, Mr. Blackwell." It took a moment for John to respond. "That's impossible. I've never seen that key before." Carter chuckled softly, lowering his arm. "You might not recognize it now, but trust me, it's yours." Without another word, he turned and remounted his horse, leaving John standing alone beneath the deepening twilight. Inside the main house, John examined the key under the flickering light of a kerosene lamp. Its surface was smooth, engraved with intricate patterns that seemed familiar yet distant, like memories half remembered. A chill ran down his spine as he tried to piece together where he'd seen such craftsmanship before. Finally, he set the key aside and decided to confront the matter later, dismissing it as some kind of prank or misunderstanding. But sleep evaded him that night. Restless thoughts plagued his mind, stirring up fragments of dreams long suppressed. By dawn, he found himself drawn to the attic, a place he rarely ventured due to its musty smell and eerie stillness. As he climbed the creaking stairs, the memory of his late wife, Mary, surfaced unexpectedly. She had often spoken of a locked chest stored up here, though she refused to open it during her lifetime, claiming it held things best left undisturbed. John paused at the top of the staircase, gazing around the dimly lit space. Cobwebs clung to the rafters, and boxes were stacked haphazardly against the walls. Then, tucked away in the far corner, he spotted the chest. Dust coated its surface, obscuring the once polished wood. With trembling hands, he retrieved the key Carter had given him and inserted it into the lock. The mechanism clicked open with surprising ease. Inside, he discovered documents, photographs, and trinkets belonging to his ancestors. Each item told a story of hardship, resilience, and sacrifice. But what caught his attention most was a leather-bound journal filled with cryptic entries written in a language he didn't understand. Flipping through the pages, he came across one entry written in English. "Beware the door behind the mirror. What lies within cannot be unseen." His breath hitched as realization dawned upon him. There was indeed a mirror hanging in the parlor downstairs, an antique piece passed down through generations. Though he'd always dismissed it as merely decorative, the warning in the journal sent shivers down his spine. Determined to uncover the truth, he rushed back to main room and studied the mirror closely. It wasn't until he pressed firmly against its edges that a hidden compartment revealed itself, exposing a narrow passageway leading downward. Heart pounding, John descended into the darkness, guided only by the glow of his lantern. The air grew colder as he ventured deeper, the scent of damp earth filling his nostrils. Eventually, he reached a large chamber illuminated by torches mounted along the stone walls. Before him stood a massive iron door, its surface adorned with carvings similar to those on the key. For a moment, doubt clouded his judgment. Perhaps this was all a mistake, a fabrication meant to torment him further. Yet, driven by a mixture of fear and fascination, he unlocked the door and pushed it open. What greeted him defied comprehension. Rows upon rows of shelves lined the walls, each containing artifact of unimaginable power and significance. Ancient scrolls, glowing crystals, and relics of civilizations long extinct lay preserved within glass cases. Among them was a pedestal holding a single object, a sphere pulsating with ethereal light. As John stepped closer, the sphere emitted a low hum, resonating within his chest. Suddenly, voices echoed around him, overlapping in a cacophony of languages both familiar and foreign. Images flashed before his eyes, battles fought, kingdoms risen and fallen, secrets whispered between gods and mortals. Overwhelmed, John stumbled backward, clutching his head as the knowledge poured into him like a torrential flood. And then clarity struck. The key wasn't just any key. It was a symbol of lineage, proof that his family had been guardians of this hidden sanctuary for centuries. Generations of Blackwells had sacrificed everything to protect these treasures, ensuring they remained concealed from the world above. But why now? Why had Carter chosen this moment to reveal the truth? As if answering his unspoken question, the ground trembled violently, causing the chamber to shake. Alarms blared somewhere in the distance, signaling an intrusion. Panic surged through John as he realized the sanctity of the vault had been breached. Someone or something was coming for the artifacts. Refusing to let history repeat itself, John grabbed the sphere and sealed the door behind him, locking it with the key once more. Racing back to the surface, he encountered Carter waiting outside the entrance, his expression grim. "They're close," Carter said, nodding toward the horizon. "We need to move quickly." "Who are they?" John demanded, gripping the sphere tightly. Carter sighed, his shoulders sagging under the weight of revelation. "Descendants of those who sought to claim these powers for themselves. They've been hunting your family for decades, hoping to exploit what you guard." Unbelievable anger coursed through John, fueling his resolve. "Then we fight. Together." They prepared for battle, fortifying the ranch against the impending threat. Hours stretched into days as waves of attackers descended upon the property, armed with weapons forged from stolen relics. Despite their numbers, John and Carter held their ground, defending the legacy entrusted to them. In the end, victory came at great cost. The invaders retreated, leaving behind scars that would take years to heal. Exhausted but determined, John returned to the vault, placing the sphere back onto its pedestal. As he closed the door for the final time, he understood the weight of his responsibility and the sacrifices yet to come. Little did he know, however, that the true test of his resolve was only beginning. For among the relics, one artifact remained untouched, its purpose unknown. And somewhere in the shadows, eyes watched, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. The days that followed were a blur of preparation and vigilance. John Blackwell, now burdened with the knowledge of his family's hidden legacy, could not shake the feeling that their fight was far from over. The ranch buzzed with an unusual energy as John and Carter worked tirelessly to fortify it against any future threats. Supplies were gathered, defenses reinforced, and every corner of the property scrutinized for potential vulnerabilities. Yet, despite their efforts, an unsettling unease lingered in the air, as if the land itself sensed the darkness that loomed on the horizon. One evening, as the sun dipped below the jagged peaks of the distant mountains, casting long shadows across the desert floor, John found himself alone in the main house. The silence was oppressive, broken only by the soft crackle of the fire burning in the hearth. He sat at the kitchen table, staring blankly at the journal he had retrieved from the attic. Its pages, filled with cryptic symbols and warnings, seemed to mock him, taunting him with secrets he could not fully grasp. Carter appeared in the doorway, his silhouette framed by the fading light outside. "You've been poring over that thing nonstop," he observed, his tone tinged with concern. "Find anything useful?" John shook his head slowly, his fingers tracing the edge of the worn leather cover. "Not exactly. But there's something. I can't put my finger on it. It feels like the answers are right here, just out of reach." Carter stepped closer, leaning over the table to examine the journal more closely. "Maybe it's meant to be that way. Some things aren't meant to be understood all at once. Or maybe we're missing something obvious," John countered, flipping through the pages until he reached the entry about the door behind the mirror. His eyes narrowed as he read it again, his mind racing with possibilities. What if there's more than just a vault down there? What if this door leads somewhere else entirely? Carter raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "Somewhere else? Like where?" "I don't know," John admitted, frustration creeping into his voice. "But I intend to find out." Under the cover of night, the two men descended into the underground chamber once more. The torches flickered faintly, casting dancing shadows on the stone walls. John led the way, his lantern held high as he navigated the labyrinthine passages, leading away from the main vault. Each step echoed ominously, amplifying the tension that hung heavy in the air. Finally, they arrived at a section of the wall adorned with carvings unlike anything they had seen before. Intricate patterns spiraled outward from a central symbol, pulsating faintly with a pale blue light. At its base rested a small pedestal, upon which lay another key, this one larger and more ornate than the one Carter had given John. "This must be it," John murmured, reaching out hesitantly to pick up the key. As his fingers closed around it, a low hum resonated through the chamber, causing both men to freeze. "What did you do?" Carter asked sharply, his hand instinctively moving toward the revolver holstered at his side. "I didn't do anything," John protested, though his heart pounded wildly in his chest. Slowly, he inserted the key into a slot carved into the wall. With a grinding sound, the stone began to shift, revealing a narrow staircase descending further into the earth. Without hesitation, John started down the steps, Carter close behind. The air grew colder with each passing moment, carrying with it the faint scent of salt and ozone. Eventually, they emerged into a cavernous space bathed in an otherworldly glow emanating from crystals embedded in the ceiling. At the center of the cavern stood a massive structure resembling an ancient temple. Its walls were inscribed with glowing runes, and at its heart pulsed a brilliant orb suspended in midair. The sight took John's breath away, filling him with awe and trepidation in equal measure. "What is this place?" he whispered, his voice barely audible over the gentle hum of the orb. Carter shook his head, his expression unreadable. "I've heard legends of places like this, but I never thought they were real. This is beyond anything I imagined." As they approached the orb, the runes on the walls flared brighter, projecting images into the air. Scenes of battles fought across time and space unfolded before them. Heroes rising, empires falling, civilizations destroyed by their own hubris. Among these visions, John caught glimpses of his ancestors, standing steadfast against forces that sought to unravel the fabric of reality itself. Then, abruptly, the images shifted. A figure materialized before them. A woman cloaked in shimmering silver robes, her face serene yet commanding. Her presence radiated power, leaving John and Carter rooted to the spot. "Guardians," she spoke, her voice resonating like a chorus of bells. "You have done well to protect what has been entrusted to you, but the time approaches when greater trials will test your resolve." John swallowed hard, finding his voice despite the overwhelming nature of the encounter. "Who are you?" And why show us this now? I am one of the keepers, the woman replied, her gaze piercing. My kind has watched over these lands since before your people walked upon them. The artifacts you safeguard are fragments of a greater whole, pieces of a puzzle whose completion holds the power to shape the fate of all existence. She paused, her expression softening slightly. But beware, for others seek these powers, not to preserve but to destroy. Your lineage carries the burden of ensuring such destruction does not come to pass. Before either man could respond, the vision dissolved, leaving them alone once more in the cavern. The orb continued to pulse gently, its light dimming, as if signaling the end of their audience. Back at the ranch, the weight of the keeper's words settled heavily upon John's shoulders. He spent countless hours studying the journal, searching for clues that might reveal the identity of those who sought to exploit the relics under his protection. Carter, meanwhile, scoured nearby towns for information about strange occurrences or individuals exhibiting unnatural abilities. Their investigation eventually led them to a secluded cabin deep within the forest bordering the desert. There, they encounter a reclusive scholar named Elias Whitmore, whose obsession with ancient lore bordered on fanaticism. Though initially reluctant to share his findings, Elias relented after witnessing the sincerity of John and Carter's mission. The artifacts you speak of, Elias explained, his voice trembled with excitement, are remnants of an era long forgotten. They were created by beings who walked among mortals, teaching them wisdom and guiding them toward enlightenment. But some among humanity twisted these gifts, using them for conquest and domination. He leaned forward, his eyes gleaming with urgency. There exists a prophecy foretelling the convergence of these relics. When united, they possess the ability to alter the very laws of nature. Those who seek this power believe it will grant them dominion over all life, but they fail to see the catastrophic consequences that would follow. John listened intently, his mind racing with implications. If the prophecy proved true, then the stakes were higher than he had ever imagined. Not only was he responsible for protecting the relics, but also for preventing their misuse at all costs. Weeks turned into months as John and Carter prepared for the inevitable confrontation. Rumors of strange phenomena spread throughout the region. Storms conjured without cause, animals behaving erratically, and whispers of shadowy figures lurking in the night. Tensions ran high, and even the ranch hands noticed a change in their employer's demeanor. One fateful evening, as the moon cast its silvery glow over the desert landscape, the attackers came. Dozens of them, clad in dark garments and wielding weapons imbued with unearthly energy, stormed the ranch with relentless fury. Gunshots echoed into the night, mingling with cries of pain and determination. John fought with unparalleled ferocity, his instincts honed by years of hardship and a newfound purpose driving him forward. Carter, too, proved an invaluable ally, his quick thinking and resourcefulness turning the tide in their favor time and again. Yet, despite their best efforts, the enemy pressed on, seemingly undeterred by losses. In the heat of battle, John spotted their leader, a tall, imposing figure whose eyes glowed with an unnatural intensity. Recognizing the danger posed by this individual, John charged forward, determined to end the threat once and for all. Their clash was fierce, each blow delivered with precision and malice. In the end, it was John's unwavering resolve that prevailed, though the victory left him battered and bruised. As dawn broke over the horizon, the survivors regrouped amidst the wreckage of the ranch. Exhaustion weighed heavily on them, but the sense of accomplishment buoyed their spirits. For now, the relics remained safe, their secrets guarded by those willing to sacrifice everything to protect them. Yet, as John gazed out over the desolate expanse of the desert, he knew this was merely the beginning. The forces arrayed against him were vast and unyielding, and the ultimate test of his courage and conviction awaited just beyond the horizon. Little did he know, however, that the greatest challenge would come not from external threats, but from within himself, and the choices he would soon be forced to make. The aftermath of the battle left the ranch in shambles. Smoke curled lazily from smoldering embers, and the once pristine fields were now marred with scorch marks and craters where explosives had detonated. The air carried a metallic tang, a grim reminder of the lives lost and the sacrifices made. John Blackwell stood amidst the wreckage, his hands on his hips as he surveyed the damage. His face was streaked with dirt and sweat, but his eyes burned with determination. Carter approached him cautiously, his own weariness evident in every step. "We held them off," he said, though his tone lacked the conviction one might expect after such a victory. "But at what cost?" John didn't respond immediately. Instead, he turned his gaze toward the horizon, where the first rays of sunlight pierced through the morning haze. "They'll be back," he finally said, his voice low but resolute. "And next time they won't come alone." The days that followed were filled with repairs and preparations. John and Carter worked tirelessly to restore the ranch's defenses, reinforcing walls, digging trenches, and setting up traps designed to slow down any future invaders. The ranch hands, though shaken by the attack, rallied behind their employer, inspired by his unyielding spirit. Even Elias Whitmore returned briefly, bringing with him ancient texts and diagrams that promised new ways to fortify the property against supernatural threats. But despite their efforts, an unsettling feeling gnawed at John. He couldn't shake the sense that something or someone was watching, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. It wasn't paranoia. It was instinct, honed over years of surviving in the unforgiving wilderness of the Wild West. And deep down, he knew that whatever came next would test not just his strength or resolve, but his very soul. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the desert floor, John found himself drawn once more to the attic. The journal lay open on the table, its pages illuminated by the soft glow of a kerosene lamp. As he read through the entries again, a particular passage caught his eye, a description of ritual, performed only during the rare alignment of celestial bodies, capable of revealing hidden truths about the relics under his protection. Intrigued, John sought out Carter, who was inspecting one of the newly installed defensive mechanisms near the barn. "I think I found something," John began, holding up the journal. "There's a ritual mentioned here. It could help us understand the relics better, maybe even give us an edge against whoever's coming for them." Carter raised an eyebrow. "A ritual? You're talking about messing around with forces we don't fully understand, John. That's dangerous territory." "I know," John admitted, his expression troubled. "But if there's even a chance it can help us, we have to try." Reluctantly, Carter agreed. Together, they gathered the necessary items. Herbs plucked from the surrounding hillsides, water drawn from the nearby river, and a mirror salvaged from the parlor. Under the light of a nearly full moon, they set up the ritual circle in the heart of the underground chamber, surrounded by the glowing crystals embedded in the walls. As John recited the incantation written in the journal, the air grew heavy, charged with energy that crackled like static electricity. The mirror before them shimmered, its surface rippling as though disturbed by an unseen breeze. Slowly, images began to form within its depths, visions of places John had never been, faces he had never seen, yet somehow recognized. Among these fleeting glimpses, one figure stood out, a man cloaked in shadows, his features obscured but his presence unmistakably malevolent. He moved with purpose, gathering allies and forging weapons imbued with dark magic. His goal was clear: to unite the relics scattered across the land, using their combined power to reshape reality according to his twisted vision. John staggered back, overwhelmed by the weight of what he had witnessed. "That's who we're fighting," he whispered, his voice trembling. "He's already started assembling the pieces." Carter placed a hand on his shoulder, offering silent support. "Then we need to find the others before he does." Their search led them far beyond the borders of Arizona, into territories both familiar and strange. They traveled to abandoned mines in Colorado, where echoes of ancient battles still lingered in the tunnels. They ventured into dense forests in Oregon, following trails marked by symbols carved into tree trunks. Along the way, they encountered others like themselves, individuals bound by blood or fate to protect fragments of the same legacy. Among these allies was a woman named Clara Hayes, a sharpshooter with a knack for uncovering secrets buried deep within dusty archives. Her family had guarded a relic known as the Starstone, a crystalline shard said to contain the essence of a dying star. When John and Carter arrived at her homestead, they found her preparing to leave, having received word of an impending attack. Together, they fought off the attackers, securing the Starstone and earning Clara's trust. She joined their cause without hesitation, her skills proving invaluable in the months to come. Another ally, a reclusive healer named Samuel Grayson, possessed knowledge of herbs and potions that could counteract the dark magic wielded by their enemies. Though initially reluctant to involve himself in their quest, Samuel eventually saw the necessity of standing together against a common threat. With each new discovery, John felt the burden on his shoulders grow heavier. The relics were more than mere artifacts. They were keys to powers that defied comprehension. Some granted visions of the past or future, while others manipulated the elements themselves. Each carried with it a warning, etched into its surface or recorded in the journals of those who had come before. Use wisely, lest you unleash chaos. Yet, even as they collected the relics, John couldn't escape the nagging suspicion that they were being watched. Footsteps echoed when no one else was near. Shadows flickered at the edges of his vision. And then one night, as he sat alone in the underground chamber, studying the latest relic they had recovered, a voice spoke directly into his mind. "You cannot win this fight, John Blackwell." Startled, John looked around, but the chamber remained empty save for the relics arranged on pedestals around him. The voice continued, smooth and menacing. "Your kind has always failed. Why should this time be any different? Who are you?" John demanded, gripping the relic tightly in his hand. "Show yourself." "I am many things," the voice replied. "But most importantly, I am inevitable." Before John could press further, the connection broke, leaving him shaken and uncertain. Carter found him shortly thereafter, concern etched into his features. "Are you all right?" he asked, noting the paleness of John's complexion. "I'm fine," John lied, forcing a smile. But deep inside, he knew the truth. Their enemy was closer than ever, and his reach extended far beyond the physical realm. The final confrontation took place not on the ranch, nor in the forests or mountains, but in a forgotten temple buried beneath the sands of the Nevada desert. Maps and legends had pointed them to this location, promising the key to unlocking the true potential of the relics. What they hadn't anticipated was the trap laid in wait for them. As they descended into the temple, the air grew colder, carrying with it the scent of decay and ozone. Statues lined the corridors, their stone forms depicting scenes of triumph and tragedy. At the center of the temple stood the leader John had glimpsed in the mirror, a man whose name was whispered in fear among those who dared speak of him, Malachi Voss. "You shouldn't have come here," Malachi said, stepping forward into the light. His cloak billowed behind him, and his eyes glowed with an inner fire. "Now, you will see exactly why your kind has always failed." John squared his shoulders, his grip tightening on the relic in his hand. "We're not going to let you take these powers for yourself." Malachi laughed, a sound that reverberated through the chamber like thunder. "Powers? No, John Blackwell, these are tools. Tools meant to shape the world as it should be. Your refusal to accept that destiny is what makes you weak." The battle that followed was unlike anything John had experienced before. Malachi wielded the relics he had already claimed with terrifying efficiency, conjuring storms of fire and ice, summoning creatures born of shadow and despair. John and his allies fought valiantly, combining their strengths to counter each assault. Carter's quick thinking and sharp aim proved crucial, while Clara's precision and Samuel's healing abilities kept them alive through the worst moments. But even as they pushed Malachi back, John realized the truth. He was merely a pawn, a vessel for a greater force seeking to break free. The real danger lay not in Malachi himself, but in the entity whispering through him, manipulating events from shadows. In the end, it was John who faced Malachi alone, the final relic clutched in his hand. The choice was simple yet agonizing. Destroy the relic, ensuring the entity's defeat, or use its power to banish Malachi forever, knowing it might corrupt him in the process. As the seconds ticked away, John closed his eyes, remembering the faces of those he had fought alongside, the ranch hands, Carter, Clara, Samuel, and countless others who had trusted him to carry this burden. Their faith gave him strength, guiding his hand as he made his decision. When the dust settled, Malachi lay defeated, the relics shattered into fragments that dissipated into the air. The temple trembled, its structure weakened by the destruction of the artifact at its core. John and his allies fled just in time, emerging into the bright desert sunlight as the temple collapsed behind them. Back at the ranch, life slowly returned to some semblance of normalcy. The scars of battle remained, both visible and invisible, but so too did the bonds forged in the crucible of adversity. John often thought about the choices he had made, wondering if there was another path he could have taken. But ultimately, he knew he had done what was necessary, not just for himself, but for everyone who depended on him. And though the immediate threat had passed, John understood that peace was fleeting in a world where secrets lurked in every shadow and power tempted even the strongest hearts. The relics were safe, for now, but the legacy of the Blackwells ensured that their guardianship would never truly end. Little did he know, however, that the greatest challenge awaited not in the distant future, but much closer to home. For buried deep within the land he loved, a secret older than the relics themselves stirred, ready to emerge when least expected.